So, it's April Fool's. Today I just make videos that are just kind of weird or pointless or whatever, because I can pretend it was a joke and stuff.
Today we're just going to talk about a few random games that we want to highlight, even if we don't always have super interesting things to say about them. But hey, remember this game is what half of YouTube videos are about anyway, so who cares?
So, here's a game genre I like. Japanese walking simulators.
Japanese walking simulators? Oh, you mean the type where you're a Japanese salaryman escaping a rolling globe, Indiana Jones style, stop a falling elevator and paramedics ask you to answer quizzes correctly or they'll torture you? That sort of thing?
I'm referring to Incredible Crisis for the PlayStation 1? Yeah, though that's mostly a collection of minigames. Okay, anyway, so what I'm talking about is technically not a walking simulator. That's more the slow-paced, walking around and getting a story kind of experience. It is more of an arcade-type game, but yeah, it's usually the same theme. You're running down a street, dodging obstacles, jumping over things. I think the most well-known of these types of games is Pepsi Man, based on the Japanese Pepsi commercials. And yes, I do love that game, definitely. Became a little famous for being Sonic Adventure 2-ish. A lot of people made jokes about that.
Oh yeah, the Sonic Adventure 2 prototype game. I mean, there's you skateboarding through San Francisco and being chased by a giant truck years before Sonic did it. You're even a blue runner.
They're not an endless runner. They do have specifically designed levels with a start and end, and therefore actually interesting level design, tons of content and wackiness, instead of just endless runners that just are boring and go on forever. It's a shame these games aren't super popular with Let's Players, despite all their wackiness going on.
Well, it's a waste if some jerk is talking through these games. They always have catchy music.
Another one of those I never really heard of until recently is Oh No! It's got everything. Weird 2D 3D hybrid graphics, insane Japanese humor and art style, simple to play mechanics but very hard to beat, crazy anime cutscenes which sadly aren't very skippable, so that's kind of annoying after a while, and of course very catchy music.
Ugh, those guys are really ugly, so you'll be happy to know they spend most of the game naked, including full frontal nudity. Thanks, Japan!
It's so simple, and that's why I love it. You move forward, you can change the order you guys are in, you're either 2 guys or 3 guys, and then you dodge obstacles or do simple platform sections. Of course, when I say simple, I mean that as in gameplay technical simple, not in easy to beat the game, because it isn't. Not at all.
Stupid idiots keep getting stuck behind people and are too dumb to move around. Very frustrating. It beats me why you die if you're too slow. It has a commentary of Japanese strictness that you get killed if you're 5 seconds late for school. So what's the story?
I don't know. You go to school, meet some lady whose butt convinces her hero makes her look like a boar, so they try to make her look like one. Then her husband gets angry and tries to kill you with a bulldozer.
Ah, that's just a typical Wednesday morning in Southend.
It has this Adventure Island style food meter going down where our heroes need to constantly shove food in their mouths every minute or they'll immediately die, so you have to grab hamburgers laying around on the street.
Delicious. Food from the gutter. I suppose I should make a ground beef pun here, but it's a Japanese game. You'd think they would eat noodles or those rice balls.
Yeah, weird. Weird in a normal way, not in a Japanese way like the rest of this game. Don't think I have much meaningful things to say about this game. Probably hard to get unless you can play Japanese import games on your PlayStation 1. Works fine on emulator, if it's okay with you to be illegally playing a game you can't legally buy anyway.
I kinda miss these Japanese walking simulator games. Are they still being made? Probably for the PSP somewhere. Tons of weird Japanese games on the PlayStation Portable.
I don't know. I own one from Nintendo Wii with Japanese bodybuilders flexing through the city though. Muscle March. PewDiePie played that game, so that one did get a ton of Let's Play attention, I guess, so it's pretty good.
A cheering penguin? A bodybuilding bear? This is too much silliness for me. How about something more normal, like a drunken artist hallucinating his house to be a hellish nightmare? Here's a game I wanted to talk about. Layers of Fear.
This one did get a lot of Let's Player attention, so I'm not sure if it's worth highlighting.
Of course. No one better to talk about a terrible artist losing his mind than you. In Layers of Fear, you're an artist locked in his home, slavishly working on creating the ultimate masterpiece. He neglects his family, or worse, neglects his house, or worse, and neglects himself, or worse. All this self-destruction just to create a terrible, horrifying piece of art that the artist mistakenly believes will be his salvation. Really reminds me of you, Rog. So what did you think?
I like how a game about painting a portrait is 99% walking around aimlessly around a house and 1% is actually doing any painter-related stuff.
I thought this game was alright. Madness around every corner. Paintings change. Doorways disappear. You'll be walking in fear, waiting for the next terror to show up. There's so many crazy moments. Knives fly at you from out of nowhere. Apples falling out of paintings. The room starts shrinking. It's really claustrophobic. Sometimes you'll just be walking around this corridor. And then...
Boo! Jump scare! Startling, yes. Scary, no.
Oh, I take it you didn't care much about this game then.
Oh, it's pretty and has lots of interesting visuals. And I love the concept of being inside the characters' brains and having weird psychological stuff happening. I just think those things are better suited when diluted with other gameplay styles. Like, take Spec Ops, for example, a game that's introducing itself as a generic war shooter, but slowly reveals itself to be about psychological horror. But the thing is, you play most of the game as a normal shooter, so therefore the horror and psychological stuff can creep onto you more. Because that's how thoughts kind of work, right? You're just doing your thing, living your life, and then your thoughts suddenly creep up on you, catch you by surprise, make you question how much of the stuff you've been doing is real or fake because the regular gameplay and the psychological stuff melds into each other. But with Layers of Fear, there's no regular gameplay, no regular occupation for you to engage in. You're literally just walking around until the next horror sequence begins. So instead of having an actual game, an actual world, an actual reality that gets invaded by the madness, to me it's just like I'm walking around in a museum, walking from horror exhibit to horror exhibit.
Don't you think it's interesting how the house itself is almost a character? You get a brief look how the house really looks like, and then for the rest of the game, all those rooms are distorted into monster versions of themselves.
I think I would have preferred if most of the game, like the house is normal with its original layout intact, you're just solving puzzles or doing tasks to finish the painting, with the rooms playing tricks on you and distorting into nightmares only during specific set pieces or surprise moments. Again, to actually catch you off guard and make you question where reality ends and illusions begin. But because the game pretty much entirely takes place in the abstract drunken illusion version of the house, it doesn't feel like they're surprising me or catching me off guard, or it's really the artist's thoughts creeping into his mind. It's just a non-stop haunted house carnival ride with you moving from room to room, just waiting for little ghosts to pop out. Boo!
Your version sounds immensely boring. What the heck can you even do in a small house for much of the game? Doing puzzles? Reminds me of that old DOS game, The Seventh Guest, where you spend most of the game screwing around with soup cans and other stupid puzzles until some cheesy actors scream about something random. Yeah, that's an improvement.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have no answer to that. Anyway, using the artist as a viewpoint for a visual horror game is a good call. Not only because it gives you a creepy house with tons of paintings to screw around with, not only because most artists are a bit weird in their heads anyway, but yeah, they're more visual-minded too.
So, as a drunken wife-murdering artist yourself, is this game accurate?
Well, I did just get married, so we have to wait until... I mean, of course not. My mind tends to turn everyone into cartoon characters more than any kind of horror shows anyway, so can only imagine how my kind of psychological horror house would look like. Like one of my cartoons, probably. Anyway, it's fascinating to see how reviewers didn't like this game much, but Let's Players love it. I think that has to do with my delusion theory, that a game like this is more effective when you have secondary objective going on, like shooting or platforming in my other examples. But as a Let's Player, you're constantly having to come up with jokes and things to say to your audience, so that's a secondary activity for them. And the viewers of a Let's Play are enjoying the reactions of the person playing the game, or very often just listening to it while doing something else. So you have this extra layer of entertainment on top of the game itself and I think that's why it works better as a Let's Play experience than a game you play and judge on your own. But
Or reviewers such as yourself are too snobby and high on their horse to enjoy a simple game and want everything to be some intellectual masterpiece. So, Professor Roger, what other brainless arcade game is up to your high standards?
I've been playing Dolphin Blue, a weird arcade game I run into. Well, not really weird, it's pretty much a Contra Metal Slug ripoff, but it's still pretty cool. Great animations and characters, almost looks like a Studio Ghibli movie at times, with all the soldiers clampering on faulty hardware.
A very aggressive Ghibli movie, that is. It is very similar to that of Metal Slug, right down to its music. There's a lot of cool action as you blast through ships and enemies, all while riding on your kick-ass dolphin. It's like what might happen if they tried to make Flipper into a Japanese video game. Mind you, there was an animated series of Free Willy, and it was weird, where Willy the Whale can talk, and the villain is an evil cyborg in a giant mechanical submarine.
That's the 90s for ya. Violent R-rated movies became kid-friendly shows, and kid-friendly movies became, weird, I guess. Anyway, yeah, not much to say, I suppose. It's just a game I found interesting and wanted to highlight. Straightforward shooting and platforming. Wish the levels were more varied, though. The entire game just takes place in these battleships, with only one level taking place in a submerged mine and town. In a Metal Slug game, I would have globe-trotted half the world in varied locations by now. But yeah, I still love the artwork and such.
That villain looks like an old Dr. Eggman. Good to see the Doctor is still up to no good in his retirement years. On the subject of weird aquatic games, there's one that came out recently called Octogeddon, where you play as an angry octopus planning to attack the cities of the world, and all because he saw a commercial of a chef serving up octopus tentacles. So he swims through the ocean to epic folk metal, destroying ships with tentacles, which can be added and exchanged to lobster claws, snake heads that spit out venom, and penguin heads that freeze vehicles.
That game had some attention through Let's Plays. It's neat, yeah, it reminds me of Midway's Rampage.
The gameplay changes when you're on land, and you had to roll over pavements trying to smash down vehicles and take down planes like out of a Monster B movie. It looks great as you're the monster and you want to destroy everything in your path.
Little too soft cartoony looking for my taste. Think I would have liked it more if it had more grit. I'm kind of missing the impact of the whole thing, so I don't know.
Weird, coming from you. Any other games?
Doom mods! Man, they just keep surprising me over and over what they still manage to pull off with freaking Doom. I loved that game back in 1993, and I'm still getting new experiences from it today. Man, there's so many. Of course, I talked about Sonic Roboblast before, recently releasing a fantastic card game, submod. I'll forgive them for the Green Hill Zone for having a track. It certainly also have a ton of obscure levels represented as well, even including the Zeppelin from Sonic 1 for the Game Gear. There's even some other Sega games like Daytona and the Fantasy Star Arena thing. The cards control very well. I love boosting and then driving around. I like the art in most levels. Even Green Hill Zone with all those little decorations, kind of cute. Too bad the game doesn't really have any real single-player modes. It's mostly online racing, although you do have a single-player mode that's racing against ghosts. But man, is it tough. I've been playing Mega Man Deathmatch 8-bit a bit too, only versus robots. It can be very hard on the eye sometimes, considering the NES textures now in 3D environments. It gets a little too abstract sometimes. But in some cases it works really well. I love how the Mega Man 7 city looks like, or the Japan stage from Mega Man 6 and the Turbo Man stage. But you know, that's kind of me. I always prefer the levels that are kind of supposed to like be an actual location. Some levels are just a bunch of abstract bases, but some actually try to represent like an actual location. You're fighting on a train or a racetrack or, you know, something. A ton of the games are represented, including Mega Man and Bass, and even the Wily Wars bonus levels, with all the weapons included as well, even though the only weapon you really need are the ones working as a machine gun, like Yamato Spears or Quick Boomerang. You'll win pretty much any time. Also, there's this amazing Wolfenstein 3D type game, Blade of Agony. Don't worry, it's not endless incomprehensible mazes this time like the original Wolfenstein 3D, but actual locations. I guess a little closer to modern Wolfenstein games, although those are more linear. This is really open areas again. I love the level design, like this Paris level that has a hotel and a bar and bank to explore. Non-linear, it's open, but still compact and to the point. It really reminds me of Duke Nukem 3D levels, kind of. Have to admit, I do get lost a lot. Some levels are a little bit confusing. But yeah, I love the graphics with the weird, almost surreal use of 2D sprites. Despite being called a Wolfenstein game, there's only one level out of the 20 I played so far that actually contains Wolfenstein. That's kind of funny. But yeah, love this game. Great physics. Guns have a nice power to them. I enjoy it. There's also Castlevania Doom mod.
I've seen Mike Matei and James Rolfe play this, and it is pretty impressive. I think a first-person Castlevania can work, and this is what we should have gotten instead of the N64 Castlevania games. It kind of reminds me of the Castlevania arcade game, which never got a home console port, sadly. The layout to each level seems to be accurate to the NES levels as well.
But the one I was the most impressed by, and that's the most random to me almost, is one based on Hocus Pocus of all things. A rare, barely remembered DOS platformer, but man is it cool to see an old DOS platformer get translated to Doom. It works really well. Doom did always have the same type of level design as old DOS platformers, makes sense since Doom was made by the same guys that made Commander Keen. And it's great to see the more colorful locations instead of the usual doom and gloom of Doom. Man, I love this mod. It's not finished yet, only 3 of the 4 episodes of the original game are available yet, although that is already a lengthy 30 levels, plus bonus stages. I love how it's incorporating more outside locations too. Like the original 2D Hocus Pocus only took place indoors, but the backgrounds always intrigued me, with the giant mushrooms here and all. It's neat to see it realized in this game now. I'm also immensely impressed by the level design. It's great that despite it all being mazes, the level design is really inspired by the type of environment it takes place in. In the original DOS game, I can't play more than 4 or 5 levels in a row before I get bored. It's just endless giant abstract mazes all the time. But here there's a lot more logic to it. Desert levels have more wide open outside areas. Forest levels almost resemble Zelda-like dungeons. The ghost level has a haunted mansion type level design or a sewer design. The jungle stage is designed like a deserted city. There's always this underlying logic beneath it all that gives each level a unique identity, and so that it's not just an endless series of random mazes. Each episode has a bonus level based on a different DOS game as well. Sometimes an obvious one like a Jill of the Jungle stage, although other choices might be super obscure, like I have no idea what this stage is supposed to be. Apparently it's based on a game called Dark Wolf. Never heard of it. The music's nice though. Also impressive that they even changed the physics a bit just for the bonus level, where enemies get knocked away when you defeat them instead of explode like the regular game. Kinda makes me wish they always did that. The weird explosion was never really satisfying death animation to me. But oh well. This is a very impressive Doom mod, so for those who wish Doom had more colors and fairy locales, or wasn't R-rated, I guess this is for you.
I thought it was going to be based on the Disney movie with the 3 witches. Instead, you got something that looks like a first-person Spyro the Dragon game with giant mushrooms, castles, and gem collecting, where you play as a wizard with large grabby hands that shoot lightning. It does look colourful, and it's like being on magic mushrooms without having to take the stuff. Speaking of Doom mods, you ever played Brutal Doom? That looks absolutely badass with the violence of the original Doom taken up to beyond 11, with explosions, blood all over the walls, ripping demons' heads off and kicking them to death as they sit there screaming after you tear the arms out of their sockets. It was this mod, I believe, that inspired Doom 2016.
Oh yeah, I love Brutal Doom. Usually don't really care for blood and gore and super violence, but this game is so cartoony I kinda love it. Weapons have so much punch to them, which is great. I always miss that with modern shooters. They make it too realistic. I prefer the super intense weapons from older games, where enemies are just blown away. There's just something amazing about using those giant guns or miniguns, and as a result the entire corridor and room is just filled with blood and guts. To make it even funnier, even the physics becomes slippier, like your hero is actually slipping all over all those blood and guts on the floor. That's just hilarious. Also, punching and kicking is so satisfying. I have 2 versions of Brutal Doom, strangely enough. One that just changes the original game with the new physics, and one that has an entirely new interpretation of the levels of the original game. I love these new levels. They take the themes of the original Doom games, but make the levels behave way more, well, resembling the actual locations they're supposed to be, rather than just a bunch of abstract, weird levels. The military base levels resemble an actual military base with bunkers and ammo depots and communication centers. The Earth levels actually feel like you're really walking through an actual city, and like Doom 2, that's just abstract weirdness. Even the Hell episode surprised me. I never really liked the Hell levels in the original Doom, as they were way too abstract for me, just a weird collection of random caves and shapes and weird stuff that didn't really resemble anything. But here, Hell is a real landscape with a fortress or stronghold in each level. That episode really made me feel like I'm playing an old 2D DOS game again, like Commander Keen or some Apogee game where you go from stronghold to stronghold. Yeah, great stuff. Although also very well known by now. That game reminded me of... man, this is a weird dissector, just highlighting random games with not much to say about it. This is kind of pointless and dumb.
It's the internet. People love dumb and pointless videos.
I guess. So those were a bunch of random games we were reminded by and stuff. I hope that was intellectually stimulating. Like, subscribe, comment, pray, and worship, videotape, and then next year we'll make a video about what sodas we're all reminded by or something. I don't know.
Oh, that reminds me of that old soda we have here in Britain called...
See ya.